Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Cop Talk. I'm your host, Kevin Schroeder, and I'm here with my co-host, Ed Mamet.
Hello, WABC listeners and viewers. Here we are again with another interesting guest from another foreign land.
Exactly. Today's guests are from Canada. We have Nathan Belliveau and his dad, Bob Belliveau. Nate is a good friend of mine. We go way back, and he was up until recently, he was a equipment manager for an NHL team. That's the other team, the Devils, not the Rangers. And now he's involved in a new company called KYC, Know Your Customer Hockey, KYC Hockey. And he's here with his dad, Bob Belliveau. Bob is a retired chief coroner for the Department of Public Safety for Province of New Brunswick in Canada. So they're both here today, and welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Welcome. Hi.
So Bob's here via Canada, okay? And Nate's right here in the studio. And it took a while to get Nate here, but it took the Yankees to get into the World Series to get Nate here. But I'm glad you're here, Nate.
Yes, of course.
Nate, tell everyone about yourself.
Yeah, so obviously originally from Canada, and my wife and I just moved back with our new business with KYC. But before that, we spent the last 7 years here in New Jersey. Obviously, that's how I got to know Kev Schroeder real well and his family. And, I was equipment manager for the New Jersey Devils. And, before that, I spent a little bit of time in Iowa, Des Moines, Iowa, for a few years, and also Las Vegas. So I got about 13, 14 years stint here in the States. And we just decided to call back home, back to the homeland of Canada. So
Cool.
But glad to be in town. Obviously, it took to the World Series for us to get here. And, we're definitely excited.
And you recently got married.
Yes, August. It was good to have you there, by the way.
Beautiful wife, Laura, who's here in the studio. Hi, Laura. So, Nate, why don't you tell our audience, how did you how'd you make your way from Canada, small town in Canada, to the NHL?
Yeah, like I said, I kind of had a vision for hockey back in the day, and started off as a 14-year-old boy, being a stick boy, water boy for the local junior team. And before I started off with them, they had their first ever season. And I remember saying to my dad, and Dad can tell you more about it too, is I asked him to drop me off of the rink. I said, I'm going to knock on the door and see if I can get in the locker room and start helping the team out. He kind of rolled his eyes at me. So we obviously made our way there. And when we made our way, I went to the room, knocked on the door. A longtime friend of mine that passed away a few years ago, David Kelly, answered the door. And he told me that they didn't have no position. So I said, no problem. So I started walking back to the car, and the visiting team was loading in their gear for the next night. They were playing a game the next night. So we were on the way out, and I saw their equipment manager. So I went over to him and asked if he needed any help for the next game. And he said, yeah, come back here around 5:30 tomorrow. So I went to the car. I said, well, Dad, I got some good news and bad news. I said, they originally didn't want me to be with the main team. But I said, on the way out, the visiting team was moving their gear in for the game the next day. I asked if I could help out. He said I could. So I'm going to take that chance. So therefore, I went from there. We went the next day to the rink. I helped them out doing their waters, just small stuff. And I said, Dad, for now on, just drop me off back to the visiting teams. The security now know who I am. I'm just going to make something of it and tell them I'm there to help them out, not give them an option to tell me no. So sure enough, the next game, went back. Security knew who I was from the game before, let me in the rink. I went to the visiting team. Hey, I'm here to help you out today doing your water balls and stuff. So that went on for half a year, and then David Kelly finally realized I was down there the whole time helping out and didn't bother to ruffle the feathers on it. And he asked me to come join them on the home team side. So they were the St. John Sea Dogs. So then my whole high school career, I kind of helped them out and learned the business of sewing, skate sharpening, ordering, budgets. There's just more to the game of that, relationships, right? So then when I graduated at 17, I went to Bathurst, same league as the head equipment guy. So it was a paid position there. And then from there, I obviously had a vision that I wanted to be in the NHL one day. That was an ultimate goal from a small town, but it's not realistic for some people. And I didn't take no for an answer, so I took some risk. So therefore, I started a few years there with the junior team as a paid position. I then got on with Team Canada under 17 at 18 years old. So I did that at 18 and 19 years old. By 20, I applied for a few pro teams. But what happens in the summertime, we get to go on a little bit of a getaway. They basically all get together, trainers. They go over new products, learning sessions. So I told Dad to book me there, and it was at a fancy hotel. But I remember on a tight budget, I was 20 years old. So I got a Motel 6. I remember eating fast food every day just to keep the ends to be able to meet. Right. I went to these meetings, introduced myself to different equipment managers all through different leagues, and that's kind of how you built your profile. So from there, I was able to get a job with Las Vegas Wranglers, and one of the main things was I wasn't afraid to get out there and shake hands and and get seen by different people. So by the time he started calling different references, they backed me up. So I was able to get in the East Coast Hockey League in Las Vegas. So then from those meetings again, met my longtime friend Mike Lefsick, that's now with the Philadelphia Flyers, which he met at my wedding. He stood at my wedding. We're best friends. He from those meetings, he hired me to go to the American Hockey League in Iowa with Minnesota system. So I jumped up a few more levels, and I did that at like 23. So then I was there a few years, and then by 21 I was there. By 25, it's all who you know at that point, right? Once you're in the business, you got to be well liked, you got to be well presented, you got to do things by the book. People see that. So I was able to get on with New Jersey. Ray Scherer was the general manager at the time, and he was best friends with Chuck Fletcher from the Minnesota Wild. So when you have a few connections that know each other and there's trust, that's how we're able to do it. So then obviously I was in Jersey for the last 7 years. I decided to open up a few side businesses, and it kind of worked out for the better, where I'm in a way better situation now, being my own owner, partners with a few people, and I'm enjoying life.
Well, tell us about your new venture now, KYC.
Yeah, so KYC Hockey was a brand that we started in New Brunswick, in my hometown. There's another gentleman that's the horse behind it. His name's James Mailman. So originally he started the company. We had a couple good conversations over the past time, and it was just the right fit. I bring a lot to the table that he doesn't, vice versa. Like, he's a whiz with a lot of things. Like, if I really say he's the glue to the family, just because in my profession, I can tweak things, I can help out with connections, different things, but just the mindset that he has is tremendous. So, so we started New Brunswick. We were kind of targeting young kids, minor hockey, stuff like that. That was our goal. And we had a video go viral, probably about a month ago, on Hockey Tutorial. So on Hockey Tutorial, it's kind of like the Dave Portnoy pizza review, but a review for hockey gear. So a lot of people, they have a good following. They ranked our stick pretty much as the low kick, the best stick on the market for low kick.
Yeah, I watched the video, and that's what they did. Yeah.
Yep.
Guys
So
from the UK.
Yeah. So the guys from the UK, and that was a blessing. That really put us on the map for our stick. And in our company, we literally just have sticks. We're not trying to overshoot it with different protective equipment or anything like that. We want to make a really good product in one thing, and then maybe we expand as we get going. But right now we got something really good on the market, and it's half the price from what other costs of sticks are. So that helps us. And then that video going viral, and like he says in it, he goes, for the price of one top end stick on the market, I can get two of them for the price for what you have. So it's just a really good situation that we have, and we're excited to get in markets. We're obviously looking for different dealers and stuff like that all across the world. And, from us going from the UK to Australia, those areas, there's a lot of, the web can do a fun thing to you. It can hurt you or it can bless you, So in this regard, we're very blessed of what we kind of accomplished so far, and we're not done. We're still looking to grow as a company and taking it with great strides.
No, that's great. Before I bring in your dad, Bob, and I go back to the captain here, even though we love hockey, I love hockey, captain loves hockey, I still play it immensely, believe it or not. We love hockey. We're a hockey family. And with that said, that's not the main reason why we brought you on, even though we love hockey. We brought you on because of the fundraising you've been involved in with law enforcement, not only in New York, New Jersey, and Canada. I know many times I've asked you, hey, can we get a player or a jersey signed or whatever it may have been for one of our benefits for the widows and children, to raise money, for whatever. You've always been there. You got PK Subban involved, and why don't you talk about a little bit of that?
Yeah, like I said, like obviously in my heart, like the law enforcement's close to my heart with my dad being highway patrol back in the day and a sheriff department, which I'll let him get into that because once we give him the mic, I don't know if we'll be able to get him off it. But yeah, other than that, yeah, we like it's always been a close part of my heart. And I remember when I first went into pro hockey, Dad always said to me, whatever you do, whatever rink you go to, you know, you present yourself well, but make sure you get close to the police officers. Because you ever need something or something's around the room or, you know, you need an investigation done for the team, you can never know enough police officers or law enforcement. So every rink I go to, I always go out of my way to say hello, shake hands. And, you know, I just gave Dad a coin the other day. I got a nice coin from Seattle. We played in Seattle, and there's always police officers by the bench and stuff for us. And I got a nice Seattle Kraken police coin. So I gave it to Dad there the other day just before he departed for his trip. But yeah, back to all that, you know, that's the first vision of my father telling me to get close with them. And obviously we made connection with you guys, but that's just a big piece of my heart where, you know, I'm loyal to those groups. And to talk back to your cigar nights and stuff that you have and stuff like that, it only makes sense when you reach out to get these guys involved. You guys are fundraising money for such good causes that it's a no-brainer. So with PK, you know, we call PK, and it wasn't in minutes. He was, yes, I'll be there, and he showed up, and you know, shaking hands, and he's a busy guy. He's a busy scheduled guy, and as you could vouch for too, he's always on the go with ESPN now, and just being retired in his career. But one of my dearest friends, and you know, you make those calls to those guys. They know if you're calling, it means something to you. So they're usually pretty good on getting back to you in that way. And obviously, we had a chance too with Curtis Gabriel. Used to be a hockey player with us with New Jersey. Played a little bit in Toronto and San Jose and Minnesota system. He also has done a few charity events for you guys too, and obviously a good friend of yours now too.
Yes.
And that's the biggest thing. It's hockey is just like the police department. You're a team. You're a cult. You know what I mean? And when we say team as in hockey, like you guys lives are on the line every night in different ways. Like these guys get to play hockey for a living, make good money, have fans, but ultimate is having that trust and loyalty with each other. You know what I mean? Who will have each other's back. Yeah. So for me, it was a no-brainer giving back to the communities of you guys, and whenever you need jersey signs and stuff like that, because I think there's you know, we're definitely pro law enforcement in sports worlds, and you're starting to realize that, I think, more and more every day.
Yeah, hockey players get it. You know,
100%.
they get it. You need them to get involved or help out. They're right there.
100%.
Now I'd like to bring in your dad. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Bob, welcome.
Hey, thank you.
How you doing?
Glad to be here.
Great.
I'm doing great.
Good.
Doing great.
Good to hear your voice. Good to see you. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your background, your career?
Well, I started my police career going through police training at the ripe old age of 18. Back in the 80s, or it was actually in 79, but back in those days, it was a different world than it is now. I mean, I don't want to say we grew up more mature, but anyways, we're ready to go. We were ready to get out there. Because by the time I was 19, I was driving a patrol car by myself. I think back now, at my age, I said, oh my God. But I look at the 20-year-olds now, saying, you know, half of them, they don't have the maturity. But anyways, yeah, I went through police training in 1979, and I went to regular patrol in the 1980s. So I did 5 years patrol, doing general investigation and so forth. And then what I did in 85, I switched my career over to the New Brunswick government, which would be a state government to you guys. And I joined the Highway Patrol Division, which would be state troopers.
Oh, okay.
So there I had 5 years with them, and they went through training for breathalyzer technician, and they put me through the training for up to my third level accident reconstruction training. Excuse me. And so I was there for that time. And then what happened was I transferred over to a sister division, which would be was with the sheriff coroners. The sheriffs in Canada are not like in the States where they're not, there's no political 4-year term. The sheriffs are a full-time position at all positions, and you have to have a police background, and you have to have the police college. So they're not elected. And then once with the sheriff coroner branch, then they do their 30 years there, or if they decide to leave, right? So I started with there, and I was a deputy sheriff coroner for about 10 years, doing sheriff duties and coroner duties. And I'll get into the coroner part a little bit in a second, because again, it's a little bit different than how it's done in the States. So I was at that position for 10 years. Then I moved up to what they call high sheriff in Canada, because we're still appointed and go through the at that time was the Queen to get appointed in the Royal Gazette. And then after that, the department did a switch. The politicians, I don't know what they thought they were doing, but they split the sheriff coroner branch, and I had to make a choice either stay with the sheriff or move to the coroner. So I took a position with the coroners as what they call a regional coroner. And with the regional coroner, they put me in charge of 3 counties. The high sheriff was in charge of 1 county, and the regionals are 3 counties. So I took over the duties for the coroner side, and I did that for the rest of my career, which is about another 20 years. Going back to I'll get into the coroners now. Same thing. They're not political appointments; they're full-time appointments. And some of our provinces in Canada have coroner systems, and some provinces are medical examiners. In New Brunswick, all the coroners that I had were all retired or police officers that transferred out to take positions as an investigator, on-scene investigators. And then what we had on staff is when I was at St. John as a regional, I would have had 4 forensic pathologists, and I had about 6 pathologists part-time with that staff, and I had a provincial forensic toxicologist. And then in my county, we dealt with 12 police agencies, and they all had 1 detective assigned to us to help us with cases. And then in Canada, we had the forensic identification section, so that we had them with us. So I did that for all the years, and I think, believe it or not, it sounds like crap, but I probably investigated close to 5,000 deaths in my 30 years.
Wow.
And what happened in 2019, they offered me the deputy chief's position, and I didn't want it. But then they convinced me it was better for my pension, and all I would have to do was work on updating policies, updating training, equipment, all that stuff that had been neglected for years. So I took the position, and then within 2 months, the chief was gone. I became chief. So I inherited a lot more responsibility, which I wasn't planning on it, and I finished my career, like again, as the chief coroner, dealing with domestic violence, homelessness, indigenous issues, culture issues with the Muslims and everything else. So it was really was just a full time dealing with all of that kind of stuff until I retired.
That's one quick thing, Bob. As your son here, can you kind of touch base just before we get too off topic with it? Just the difference between the coroner in the United States and what it's like from Canada wise, so people for our listeners kind of understand the difference between them. Absolutely.
Anybody that applies for the coroner's office in Canada to become a coroner have to have police background. They have to have investigative background. And some areas of the coroners we have full-time coroners, and we have part-time. So the full-time guys are young police officers that are going to be with us for their career, and the part-time positions that are rural are usually retired sergeants and inspectors of police background, or appointed to those communities to do coroner work with us part-time. What we do is almost like a CSI. What we do is we do our investigation. We bring in the police detective, and if it's not a criminal matter, the detective will hand everything over to the coroner, and he does everything. If it's a hospital death or civil or whatever other things we do, the coroner will take the lead then and finish off the investigation. The police officers' reports, everything belong to the coroner, and then the same thing here. We have the pathologist and the forensic pathologist on staff belong to us. So we cover the resources, and yet if we need other resources, the police are investigating something or they need a blood splatter expert. And we're a tiny province again, where we're at. We're only like 1 million plus population for our province. So some of the resources we don't have, but the the police will ask us, we'll bring an expert from Central Canada to come in to do like a blood splatter expert or whatever we need to do the investigation. But it's ultimately under the umbrella of the coroner. And like I said, it's not a matter of they're not political positions. So it's not a matter of a guy running for 4 years. And I don't know how all your states work, but I've seen some of them where you can elect a coroner in some states for 4 years, and most of them don't even have a police background. That's an elected official position. But Canada's not seen like that at all. In Canada, to become a coroner, you have to have law enforcement background. That's it.
Hey, Bob, as you know, New York City does not have a coroner. They have a medical examiner.
Yes, you do, yes.
And each county, well, there's a chief medical examiner that works out of Manhattan, and in each borough, we have boroughs, 5 make up the city of New York. There's a medical examiner. They have to be doctors, medical doctors.
Yes.
Now, in other areas of the United States, you have a coroner system. And I believe the coroner system, in general, you don't have to be a doctor, but they conduct the investigations. That always puzzled me because I think that makes things a little more complicated. Kevin and I have worked many homicide cases, and we would deal directly with the chief medical examiner, and we got a firsthand look at what was going on. And another interesting aspect of the New York City Medical Examiner's Office, they don't investigate anything to do with a live person. You have to be dead. Now, I had a case some years ago where we had a live person who was, we believe they had healed gunshot wounds. And the medical examiner said, I will examine this person to determine whether these wounds are gunshot. And then he told us in the French system, they have a setup like that where a medical examiner or a coroner can actually deal with live people. So the question I have for you, you're not a doctor, right? Or you don't have any medical training. But
I don't.
Did you deal with live people or only dead people?
No, only dead people. Our department, only dead people. We go to a scene, the police officer would arrive on scene, determine through EMTs or EMS who's there. They would check for vital signs. Once they're absent, then that's the only time my department would get called. And then we would process. We go to the scene again. The coroners who are arriving are all ex-police officers, police trained by police college. So they're going to be the same standard as the detectives on scene. And if it looks very straightforward to process, all our scenes are also processed by forensic identification section. They would collect all the evidence. They would take the pictures. They would do everything. And what would happen is, if it was a homicide or something was really strange, we would call the duty forensic pathologist. And if they wanted to come down, which most time they would come to the scene. So they were on scene quite a bit, or anything suspicious, or anything serious. So then what would happen? Yeah, sorry.
Okay, I was going to ask you, what do you do if the cause of death is undetermined? And I ask you that because in New York City, there's a term called CUPPI, C-U-P-P-I, which means cause undetermined pending police investigation. And that could be hot potatoes. This is where the medical examiner can't figure out the cause of death and throws it back in the lap of the police. And the police don't have medical training, so these CUPPI investigations could go on for years. Does Canada, or where you worked, have a similar setup?
Almost similar, but we do accept the undetermined, and it goes into our statistics and stuff as unsolved, and again, like there's some stuff. I mean, you're like, and you bet you would have been there dealing with some remains that's been found in the woods for half a year. You don't know if it was a suicide, an accident, or I mean, sometimes you do the homicide, so you can't rule property. And us, it's very, very important in Canada that the statistics, the vital stats in the area be very accurate. And we don't we really pursue everything we can to try to stay away from undetermined. But if it has to be listed, it is. And we would only get maybe 2 to 5 undetermined a year in Canada. Now, there's been controversy over a fellow defending I'll give you a good example. A fellow was, his farm had been broken 2 or 3 times. So he had an alarm set in a big barn, and the alarm went off. He come running out with a rifle, and 2 young fellows were taken off in a half ton with some of his equipment. So he pointed the rifle at the half ton and killed the driver. But he went to trial, he convinced the jury that he wasn't trying to hit the driver. He wanted to hit the taillight to mark the vehicle. So if the police found it, they would have the right vehicle. And with his defense, he was able to get off on a murder charge. And so that was bounced back to my department, and we had to do our investigation, finish ours, and we still determined that it was a homicide. And so he got off on it, but the vital statistics in Canada, and the same thing, when I was challenged, we said that man might have not done it on purpose, but he did take that man's life. He killed it. So it was clear cut. It was so we won that classification. So there's, like I said, you get relatively not a lot, but some of those controversial cases will not get resolved, and we just leave it as undetermined in Canada.
Now, is the coroner's investigation called an inquest? That's an old English term.
Yes, it is. We still have we have a regular investigation. If worse comes to worse, like I said, we do have inquiries. We don't have a lot of them. Basically, we hold them when there's an issue in the community. You might have somebody that did something or didn't do something, but the word in the community was, oh, he poisoned a friend, and there's a lot of rumors. So we will have an inquiry for that, or if there's problems with some equipment, medical equipment. We do have mandatory inquiries for police officers that have shootings in case of the show, because a lot of times the rumors will start. Again, it's all rumors on how the death was done. It was all set up and whatever. So we have an inquiry, and everything is totally public. So that way, when it's all resolved, the families cannot make allegations that the police was wrongfully killed somebody or a piece of equipment was wrongfully done. But yeah, we do have a lot of inquiries in Canada over that kind of stuff.
Now, can you tell us something about the structure of policing in Canada? Now, as you know, in the United States, we have state police, we have county police, we have local police, we have police everywhere.
Yeah. Oh, you guys have a lot. We have municipal police officers, municipal policing. A lot of the rural areas that can't afford policing in Canada, they go under the umbrella of the federal government. So the Royal Canadian Mounted Police will do a lot of rural policing in New Brunswick. The cities will have their own police. The coroners the sheriffs in New Brunswick are police. They're fully equipped, weapons and everything else, but they pretty well deal with civil law. They'll serve writs, they'll do arrest warrants, they'll do certain things, but they're not actually doing enforcement as far as doing highway. Now we do have a new division. We had the highway patrol was disbanded, but we have highway safety that just started. The same thing. They're all police officers. They're doing that. They're taking over highway patrol duties in New Brunswick again. And then all the other stuff is all handled by the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. It could be drug enforcement. It could be border. It could be marine law and so forth. So the Canadian government's put a lot of trust in our federal agencies. And again, it makes it a little bit hard because even our CSIS, would be CIA to you, are all former Royal Canadian Mounted Police RCMP officers. So they hold a great big part of the structure in Canada as far as law enforcement, the college, so forth, the training. They do all our training for forensic identification, for crime scenes, for fingerprinting, for crossing crime scene, all that stuff. And they actually do the polygraph. They do breathalyzer technician courses. So all the problems are very dependent on this federal agency. It's kind of scary sometimes because we talk behind the scenes saying, oh, geez, they have one agency in charge of all these things that, yourselves, you'd have your DEA, you have your FBI, you have your border, you have all this stuff. And us, it's all one umbrella. And part of that can be scary. But as far as the training, it's very high rate. The colleges are great. We do have people that come from other countries or other British colonies will come to Canada. And Jamaica, for example, still a British colony. I was contacted about 8 years ago to go to their police college to teach there for a year. So it's very big in that sense because all our resources are a little bit. We're not as big as you are in the States. We don't have all the avenues. Even a friend of mine, a lot of the guys I know, they go to the States for the training. For example, Brad Liston went to Jacksonville, Florida, to become an instructor in radar. So all the big courses we have are taught by the Americans.
What about crime in Canada? Is it up, down, or sideways?
No, it's it goes by region. Some areas are up, some areas are down. We face the exact same thing yourselves do. You know, we're having problems. Whatever you guys have for problems, it usually hits us about a year or two later. We're dealing with a bunch of fentanyl problem. Again, the drugs are a big problem. As far as we're the new problems we're faced with was the Canadian government opened the doors to receive different people from cultures around the world as a haven, right? You had some people in other countries being abused, stuff. So we opened the doors to that. But the problem is we're getting problems that we didn't expect by dealing with these new groups coming in from their political views to religious beliefs and so forth. And so that's all new problems we're trying to deal with in Canada, and hopefully we'll get that straightened around at one time or another. It's very hard for these cultures because they leave their countries to escape the problems they're having, the violence, or then they come here and then they start the same their culture, and they're not following our laws because they're trying to follow their local laws, and that's a little bit of a problem.
Bob, I'm sorry, Cap. Bob, what's the manpower in New Brunswick as far as how many police officers?
Manpower in New Brunswick, I'm guessing there would be. We don't have too many provincial forces anywhere. I guess probably about 2,000 would be our strength in New Brunswick. Yeah.
And is there a problem there, like we're having in the U.S. in regards to
Oh,
recruitment?
absolutely. Yeah, we're
candidates.
We're it's over the years we've been hit pretty heavy with budgets and so forth. And I've seen I'll use the St. John City Police, which is a sister agency in my neighborhood. When I came over, transferred over in the Highway Patrol back in '85, the department had 260 guys. I think they're down to 128.
Wow.
So in those days, they say in those days they walked the beat. They had a bunch of beats going. They had this, they didn't have 20 cars. They only had 4 cars. So you understand parts of it in the technology, but it's still not. One time you saw it, they had a right in the city. They had a traffic section with 5 cars. Now there's no traffic section. It's really hard. And they try to explain that as they're saving money and they're covering the bases, but basically they're not. And I don't know if it's the same thing as some of the states. Even when I go through the state of Maine, I consider them almost equal us. You see all the towns have 2 or 3 cars, and they're very active law enforcement, and they're supported. In Canada, is unless they're in trouble, the population have no problem not seeing a police car. If a police car doesn't go by for 2 weeks, that doesn't bother them at all. It's just when they want one, they call for it, and then that's the only time you hear bitching. So it's a sad reality of it. And same thing when we got disbanded, when we left the Highway Patrol and let the RCP take over again. My God, we were down to about 180 patellas a year, and once the RCP come back and chop back up to 250, 300 because they weren't enforcing the highways anymore. They wanted our money, they wanted the budget so they could pursue drug surveillance, all this stuff. That's what they didn't tell the people, and the highways got neglected, right? So, but yeah, as far as equipment wise and manpower, we're a lot weaker than you are in the States for a lot of your cities and towns.
Bob, Montreal, that's like a country within a country.
It is.
Is policing different in Montreal than the rest of Canada, being that it's mostly French-speaking people?
Yeah, I have a friend of mine on there. I have a friend of mine that just retired from there. The resources were very strong, but they are probably the only true. They might have a city or two in the state, but they're probably the only true multicultural city in Canada. It doesn't matter what race you are, or whatever. That they're all well represented. They get along really great, and it's very, very. I find very liberal city. Their police resources are good because again, you got big population base, and that's what helps. You can sort of hide stuff, or you can concentrate to an area if you have a problem. Where little cities or like we have, St. John City at nighttime might have 7 patrol cars covering the whole city, and if you got a problem at one end, you got half your force at just one incident, and the rest of the 110 square miles only got 2 cars. So But in those places, they hit pretty heavy. It just amazes me how when I watch the news in the States or some clips of a high-speed chase or whatever, it's amazed me to see 15, 20, 30 police cars following. Christ, I don't know if we'd have that in our whole state one night. So, in that sense, you're ahead of us. But yeah, Montreal is very diverse, beautiful city. And I feel it's probably one of the safest cities in Canada, to be honest with you.
The elections, the United States elections, how do you think it's affecting Canada or will affect Canada?
Well, we just, you know what, Paul, like I said, it's one of those things I try to, we winter in Florida, and that's one thing they asked me, and I said, I watch the news, and when Biden, when they show clips of Trump, and they show clips of Biden, they usually try to show the negative stuff, so it's very hard for us to gauge. The only real fear I have is the closing the borders, or how they're going to do that. I mean, I know it's a real hot potato for the South U.S., but in North Canada, say, oh no, North Canada, we're friends, we'll leave you guys alone. But when you close a border, you close a border. I don't know how you should say pick one border, not the other. So, but we have the same values, we have the same problems, we have the same fears as you guys do. And like I said, again, we're going to be watching the election very close, like everybody else in the States. This is going to be a dually of an election. Over the years has been pretty boring, but it's not going to be boring this time, I'll tell you that.
Well, certainly the illegal immigration problem has to affect Canada because they're coming through Canada. And I recall reading, is this true, that Canada has a policy or a law that once someone lands in Canada, they are no longer considered illegal? Is that true?
No. They have to go through. They can ask for asylum or whatever, but they actually have to go through the whole process like you do in the States. They can stay in Canada till the process is all done. Again, it goes to the process. It goes through civil litigation. It goes through second appeal. And if the Canadian immigration doesn't feel that they don't have a real reason to be in Canada, i.e. for safety or health, then they are shipped back to their country.
Well, you can deport them to the U.S. There's no problem doing that.
Exactly.
Well, we just deport them, right?
So Bob, many years doing your job, I'm sure there's one case that may stand out that you maybe want to talk about. Yeah,
sure. I mean, I have a few, like Nathan said, I've got a few of them, but it might get cut out, whatever. But this one here happened about 2 days before Halloween, and I got a call one night. It was a nice, cool, but not cold night. And what happened? This fellow had financial problems, and
was his name
Jason?
He was running
yeah. So yeah, really. Yeah. So anyway, so he had financial problems, and but he ran a real tight ship business. He had a good crew, good business over, and he was gambling. And what happened was every time he come at night when all the trucks showed up at the shop, he was always there to have the truck there, talk to the guys, and he locked the door. And anyways, one day they arrived on a Friday, and his keys, all the keys were on the counter, and a note, and said, and anyway, so there was a red flag. So they called the wife, and the wife went home. His wallet was there with a note said, I can't do this anymore. Don't come looking for me. The wife. So the police got a call. This guy was missing and so forth. So anyway, we had a new neighborhood being built, and there was a cable going through to the new lots. They're all empty lots. So about 10 o'clock at night, one of the police patrols was going down, and they found the half ton. And when they went to the vehicle, the back of the back window was open, and when they walked in, his body was slumped on the driver's side, but his head was the back seat on the seat with his eyes looking at them, and it was pretty scary. So anyway, so they called me, and then come to find out. Anyway, we got there. Come to find out when we did our investigation that what he had done, he had taken a metal cable through the back window, wrapped it around his neck, and then gave the shot of gas in the car on this half ton. It went down the service road, and it went into the ditch. So he was decapitated. So anyway, so we're there looking. I said, Jesus, it's kind of ironic, isn't it, to be here like this? The two police officers, what do you mean? I said, if we weren't in a real situation here, we'd be in a movie, people saying, turn around. As if somebody got to kill it, and all of a sudden the two police officers are going to start going. It was so spooky, like it was so surreal, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, that was the one that really, and then the police officer says, well, we can't tell the wife. I said, well, she's going to know when she gets to the funeral home, like, we have to say something. And I said, I don't lie. My job, we don't lie. Like, we have to, if she asks, I'll always warn them. I'll say, it's pretty gross. And so the daughter and the wife said, they wanted to know. So I told them the story. And I said, you remind me, remember the TV show back years ago, the 1,000 Ways to Die? It was on TV like for 4 years. And the daughter said, yeah, Dad really loved that show. So there you go.
There you go. Yeah.
There you go.
Wow.
Now I can say as being his son, there's been a lot of on call with him, 24 hours, you're on call for your week or two. And the sacrifices he made for us growing up, I remember, middle of a snowstorm and him getting called out in the middle of the night and gone and the road's not even being plowed yet and stuff like that. So, with accidents, and I remember bus accidents. I remember as a kid, there was, and this is me telling us as a kid perspective, but I remember about 40 minutes outside of town, there was a bus coming through with a bunch of kids on it, and it happened to go off the road, and a bunch of them were killed. And I remember Dad getting called out to that, and that being a topic for us. And I've always challenged my dad, about mental health and talking with people. And, I got to say, he's very, not that he doesn't talk about it, but he's very level-headed with it, which I respect. And I always ask him every now and then, how you doing with it, And I always ask too, and I'll let you answer the question, but what I know the answer, but I'm going to let you tell for the audience listening, what was your hardest cases to go to?
Well, some of the hardest cases was dealing with the kids. And Nathan, that's one of the cases. The actual bus was traveling to Halifax from Boston. It was a Boston bus with a musical group going to competition in Canada. And so what happened was they stopped in Calais, Maine before they crossed the border. And what happened, unbeknownst to the driver, they opened one of those back windows of the bus, like the emergency windows. And the only way that you can lock it again is to actually bring that window way up high, move your hands, and just slap it. It's got to go down heavy. If you try to lock it, it's not going to lock. So they managed to get one lock on it and not the other. And then what happened was the four of them were in the back seat of the bus. And then the bus driver was driving again at about 4 in, and he realized he was missing the turn to go to Halifax. So instead of doing a loop, he actually made a hard cut, and the bus went sideways. And what happened was when the bus went sideways, the back window buckled open because one of the latches was unlocked, and those 4 kids fell out of the bus and then were crushed by the bus. So that's kind of stuff. And again, I mean, you Kevin, Captain, you guys have been to those places. It's just those things, right? Yep. And you're getting there, and you got 3 kids your age home, then but you gotta keep going, right?
And another thing to just give you guys a mindset, you guys are dealing with New York City. You might deal with a lot of people that you might only see that one time and never see them again, or dealing with individuals that you don't even know who they are. Well, where we're from, Dad can tell you the amount of calls he's gone, and we've known the families. Or you go in the house and he's like, "Oh my God, Bob, good to see you. Sorry you're in the situation." So like, just put that in perspective too. Being from a smaller town in Canada, the amount of calls my father's gone to, over 5,000 deaths, that he's known the family. So, and how much harder that would even be. It's one thing to go in there, do your job, and just have a straight face on it, but to go in there, and investigate somebody crying with with their loved ones and in denial too, and the whole family, the person that passed. And Dad, you could probably talk about that a little bit, the amount of calls you've gone on. Well, where have they been like that?
I'm going to hit a little bit different angle that the officers here can relate to. Is we're small. In my zone for the 3 counties, I personally dealt with 9 police officer suicides that I knew of them. So that's it. And I remember years ago how they said that what police suicide rate is probably the 3rd highest for stats per capita. And I didn't think so. And then over the years of, for various reasons, alcohol abuse, drug abuse, and so forth, and most of them chose the worst way possible, right? The old service revolver, and when you know them, then you deal with the family. We just, you go through the motions, right? Your heart goes to them because they're their family, right?
Yeah, here in the U.S., law enforcement, unfortunately, suicides are up. Mental health, it's a real issue, a real problem that needs to be addressed the right way. And we're working on that. Captain?
Yes. I've been through this where I had an investigation of a young little girl who was my daughter's age. The child was about 7. And I was with the medical examiner during the autopsy. And she was starved to death. And I looked at that child who looked like a rag doll. And I said to myself, I can't talk to my family about this. And that's one of the problems police have. They have nobody to talk to about these terrible things they come in contact with except the people they work with. And I always believe that has some bearing on the suicide rate.
Yeah. Oh, and you're absolutely right, because until 10, 15 years ago, with our forces, yours and ours, going to Afghanistan, these places, PTSD did not exist. You start talking about something, they tell you to shut up, or kick you out, or they'll put you on the loony. So for years, we were never encouraged to talk about this. And the only thing I have is I don't have nightmares about it. I don't dream about it. So, and same thing when I was ready to retire, they made me go through counseling and stuff. And then I remember sitting with the specialist. He said, we got talking about cases. You got PTSD? I said, no, I don't. Oh, yeah. He said, you got PTSD. You're holding it all in. I said, well, I don't think so. He said, yeah, before we retire, you're going to go through counseling. And then once I go through counseling, I realized, I had a lot of built up things, right? So, but I was lucky, I was never a violent person, so I never hacked on the kids or my wife, everybody else, just try to be the happy guy. But yeah, you carry a lot, and I'm sure, like as yourself, but it's the same way. And I don't know how you get rid of it. But now, the only problem I'm having, and I should say I have a problem. I've been off work for 2 years, and some people say, you should find a part-time job. And now I'm very good sitting in the palm tree reading my book, and but I can't watch bad news. I can't watch TV shows that shows abusive families with kids or whatever. I can't watch any of that stuff, or I'll start crying. That'll be with me the rest of my life.
Well, one way to release some stress is playing ice hockey.
We don't want to get him on. We don't want to get him on skates. Maybe some softball. Maybe I can convince him
Bob,
next
you don't play
summer.
hockey? No.
Back
I
in
used
the
to
day,
play.
Canadian plays hockey.
I played junior A, traveled the maritime before the Quebec. I did all that.
Okay.
I did. I tried to stop Nathan from being a goalie, but it didn't work.
Yeah, it didn't get me too far because I ended up being a trainer. So
yeah, it's funny, when I was growing up in the city, a few blocks from Madison Square Garden. Of course, I'm a Ranger fan, New York Knicks fan as well.
Yeah.
And I remember me saying telling one of my uncles, I want to be in the NHL, play for the Rangers, and he said, "Forget it, kid. You're not from Canada." It was all Canadians, then, in the 70s.
Kev and I just recently became friends again. Since my exit out of hockey. When it was summertime, we could hang out and have some laughs, but it was wintertime. There was a big rivalry between the Rangers and Devils.
We
didn't talk too much in season, but when the season was out, we sure enough got together.
Unless you were going to help us out with a fundraiser.
Yes, of course.
For NYPD or Newark Police
Then
Department. and
you see it too, right? Like when and obviously it's a touchy subject for people around here, and you guys experienced it. I remember as a kid when 9/11 happened. I remember getting sent home from school that day, and that's us in Canada, and going home, and me and my dad and them sitting there in the news. I remember it like a day, sitting there watching the news, watching the buildings, and watching them come down. But back to my whole story about that, you guys lived it, being in those scenarios, and I don't even want to think what you guys had to go through or what you still go through to this day. But I can tell you one thing, it's right back to, we talk about the charities and stuff, how it didn't matter what sport, race, whatever you are. In that moment, everybody came together. Right? Which I felt anyways. And maybe you can tell me a little bit more on your thoughts on that. But I thought you know, when you saw Messier come out with the fireman hat on, and I know you guys have your big NYPD and fire department charity hockey games, and there's such a battle and so against each other, but in those moments, everybody was one. And how cool, Cap, maybe you can talk about how cool was it seeing Mark Messier coming out on the ice there wearing the fireman helmet, and can you talk a little bit about that?
I thought it was just great.
Yeah.
I can't talk too much about it, but we had people from Canada down at the scene. We had people from all over the place, and if you were in the city at the time, you would see so many different uniforms.
You know, all sports, Nate, getting back to what you were saying, all sports, football, the Yankees, baseball, hockey, everyone was wearing NYPD hats and FDNY hats. It was great. Everyone was together. Unfortunately, it took 2 buildings to come down, 3,000 people that died that day. It's for everyone to come together. And now how everything is so divided, hopefully it doesn't take, you know, something like that to happen again to come together. With that said, just let you folks know, and if you're not aware of it, but we talk about a lot on the show, is since that day, there must be probably triple or quadruple of the amount of people who have died, first responders and also civilians who live down there, work down there, since 9/11. From illnesses that, again, all these different types of cancers, dying, you know, it's just the numbers are growing and growing each year. And it's, you know, it's been 23 years. So it's amazing. It just continues. It's still a memory of, you know, every day.
And that's reported in Canada. We are very aware of all that. I mean, I've watched that John Stewart's,
right,
the time he went up there in front of that committee, like he did very well. So yeah, it's very aware. We're very aware in tune in Canada on those issues there. Just to let you know, Kevin.
Yeah, and you know, and again, a lot of got people from first responders from Canada, from Georgia, from Texas came. They helped out and they went back home, and they didn't realize that there is you know, Mount Sinai has a great program for 9/11 responders. You know, and we try to get the word out there that, hey, you know, God forbid, you should sign up with the program, because God forbid if you were to get sick, you don't know anything about it because you're back home in Texas or Georgia or Canada, and there's benefits for you and your family. You know, God forbid if you do get sick.
Right.
And we're trying to get that word out there to everyone. You know?
Right. One last one for you guys. Where were you two on 9/11 day? Do you remember? You probably
yes.
do, right?
Good, Cap.
I was that day was primary day, so I was at the voting booth, and I was off that day, and I heard the police radio. You know, every polling station has a police officer assigned just to keep the peace, and I hear pandemonium on the radio. I had no idea what it was, so when I got out on the street, I saw smoke because I lived not too far from the scene. I said, "What the hell's that?" So I went upstairs to my apartment and I saw what was going on. And I went down there that night to assist, and I wound up spending about 3 weeks. I was already retired, and I went as a retiree, spending about 3 weeks down there. I was involved in the feeding program, getting food out to the workers, the so-called pile.
Wow. 3 weeks straight.
And I do have some residual problems from that.
Yeah.
I think everybody that was down there, no matter how you try to protect yourself, you picked up something. I was wearing a mask, and I still wound up with GERD and sleep apnea and some other couple of skin problems. Kevin also has some problems too, I think.
Wow.
Right, Kev?
Yeah, thank God, minor problems, but I do. But I'm signed up with the program, so that's good. And that's what I recommend to everyone who's down there, whether you live down there, work down there, was down there that day, or even 6 months later. Getting back to your question, yeah. So, you know, 9/11, it was primary day. I was off duty. I was working on a campaign because that day was primary day. And I guess it was about maybe 7:30, 7:45 in the morning. I'm heading home. And as I was driving home is when I found out the building's plane hit the building. And I didn't think it was an accident. You know, I really, you know, not to be a Monday morning quarterback, but I really believe that, you know, we could have a problem here. I got home, and my wife, Heidi, who's a nurse, Mackenzie, my daughter, was just born. She was born in June. She was 3 months old. And I says, I'm going to have to go back in. Now, at that time, cell phones going off, the house phones going off, the beepers going off to say, hey, you got to come back in. Well, you didn't have to tell us to come back in. We're coming back in. And I made sure Heidi was safe, secure, because she wanted to go to the hospital. She worked at Columbia Press. she wanted to go to the hospital and, help out there. And I said, no, let me go. You stay with the family. I went back into the city, and as the captain said, I probably got back in there after about 3 hours maybe 2 or 3 hours after the towers fell. And what they were doing is the GW Bridge. I was living upstate. I had to come over to GW. Port Authority police, every 30 minutes, they would take all the first responders over the bridge because they were afraid maybe the bridge would get hit. So they weren't just having everyone just come over the bridge at one time. It was like every 20 minutes or so, 25 minutes, a group would go over. So I finally got into the city, got to my precinct, and then, it was game on, and just like the captain said, I didn't go home for about 3 weeks either, and actually 9/11, June, July, about 3 or 4 months earlier, May of 2001, Midtown North Precinct, where I worked as a detective, we caught the Carnegie Deli homicide, which was a pretty famous case worldwide, got news coverage worldwide. And so we worked, 3 months straight on that, and then we got about a 4-week break, and the next thing you know, 9/11 hits. So it was like a crazy year. But yeah, just like the captain said, we weren't going home. That's where we were.
Crazy.
So anyway, first of all, I'm sorry, Captain. Rank has its privileges. So you go, Captain. I'm only a detective here.
Yeah, but he's the boss.
All right.
We know who the real boss is.
He's the host, and I'm the co-host, regardless of my rank. Anyway, we're wrapping it up because we're running out of time. But I think this was an interview.
Yeah, that was great.
I learned more about Canada than I ever did before, especially the coroner versus the ME system.
So, Nate, KYC.
KYC hockey.
KYC hockey. Why don't you tell everyone if they'd like to, go to your website or whatever, how to get do that?
KYC hockey. Obviously, we're on the internet. We're shipping worldwide to people all across the states, to Canada, to Europe. And sticks obviously are very good that way too with different promos that we can do. And actually, let me pull up my phone. Maybe I'll give the listeners a little discount code.
Oh, sure.
And they can maybe go on and purchase a stick. I'll give them a little 15% off. So
nice.
If you listen quickly and clear, this is going to be your discount code. So it's D for Derek, E for Eric. So Derek and Eric, right? Q for Queen, T for Tom, C for Chris, M for Mike, 2. Like the number 2. And that will give you 15% off. So if you feel free, if you play hockey or anything like that, or if you want to pre-order for your kids for some of our junior intermediate sticks coming available here in the oncoming months. Yeah, like I said, our whole vision is to give back to the hockey community and being able to make it affordable. Hockey with some of these bigger market companies now is starting to getting away from that. You're talking. It's like if you don't have money anymore, you get it. You got kids that play hockey.
Right.
You cannot play hockey if you don't have money in the family. You cannot. That's just where it's going to now.
Well, work 3 jobs like I always did.
Well,
and overtime.
Exactly.
How do you work overtime?
That's Dad. That's Dad growing up. All the overtime money went to our hockey, and you know what? And I look back at it, and that's my vision: is giving back affordable equipment and having like top rate on it too, which is a win both ways. So that's our vision: is just giving back affordable hockey.
Great. And now your wife, who's here, Laura, she's a nurse, so she's the first responder. Laura,
she's a
come
nurse.
say hello. Come say hello to our listeners.
You're on.
They love nurses.
You're on. Come sit on my lap, and you can put the headphones on.
Laura, welcome.
Hi.
Okay. So you guys are going to the game?
Yeah.
Okay, great. That's good.
You need Mike.
So I'd like to thank Nate, and Bob, his dad. Thank you for coming on our show.
The real Bob.
Thanks for having me.
Nate and Bob Belliveau.
Bob Belliveau, yeah.
And, I'd like to thank everyone for being here. Laura, welcome. Go Yankees. Hopefully they win tonight. And they take 3 here and maybe 1 more in L.A. and wrap it up. Until next time, I'd like to thank everyone for listening. If you like what you hear, you could subscribe to our show. Also, you can listen to us on X, at Cop Talk WABC. That's at Cop Talk WABC. Until next time, God bless you. God bless America. God bless Canada. God bless law enforcement throughout the world. And
you can also view this session on YouTube.
thank you, Cap. Thank you, Cap. I appreciate that. As I said, rank has its privileges. I'm sorry about that. Thank you very much for listening. Until next time, be safe.
We're all